So it's March 22nd, budget day in Ontario, for 2007 anyway. And the issue that seems to be on everybody's lips in terms of speculating what's going to be in the budget is yet another rise in the minimum wage. A few months ago, there was a by-election in the riding of York South-Weston. Now, in York South-Weston, we're talking about the second poorest riding statistically in all of Ontario. And apparently the NDP, they campaigned primarily on this idea of raising the minimum wage again, this time up to $10. The Liberals had held that seat prior to the by-election, and it wasn't considered necessarily to be a seat that was all that at risk. However, they lost. They were handed their hat, but the NDP still came out ahead and gained one seat at the expense of the Liberals. The Liberals have decided that poverty, or addressing poverty, is going to be one of their main election planks going into the general election of 2007. And so the news came out yesterday in the Toronto Star, a leaked report, I suppose, came out that it was anticipated today in the budget, Finance Minister Greg Sorbara would announce a 3-year phasing in of a $10.25 minimum wage. And so it would go up from the current $8 each year for the next 3 years. It would go up 75 cents. Whenever you hear about the minimum wage, you hear about the bad employer not paying a fair wage and how he's profiting too much on the backs of the worker. And then the employer lobbies will make a similar kind of argument. They'll say, well, you know, we're giving all we can. We have such thin margins, we can't afford to give more. You know, they're actually saying, the business lobbies, that they agree with the fundamental moral premise that it's right to raise the minimum wage as long as it's economically feasible. Well, there's a whole other side to this story that never gets stated. Let's say that your next door neighbor comes over and he says, look, if you go across the street to mow that lady's lawn for $5 an hour, I'm not going to let you. I'm going to take up my baseball bat and I'm going to block your way. And if you go there, I'm going to beat you over the head, or I'm going to hold you back, or I'm going to chain you to your front step, or I'm going to steal some money out of your back pocket as a penalty if you go ahead and do that. Well, you know what the law would do to your next door neighbor. The police would come and take him away. They'd put him in handcuffs, charge him, convict him, and stick him in a prison. Why? Because he's being coercive. He has no moral right to stop you from doing something that's completely and utterly peaceful and consensual. And that's why the law rightly is imposed, because it's immoral. It's immoral for the guy to come over and do that to you, and so the law was created to make sure that he doesn't do that immoral thing. So let's say that next door neighbor says, okay, fine, I won't do it. I'm going to pay Joe Bloggs to do it for me. I'm going to pay him, $25 to hold a baseball bat to your face and say that if you go across the street and work for $5 or less an hour, that he's going to beat you up or chain you to your house or steal money from your pocket. Well, you know what would happen then if your next door neighbor hired Joey Bloggs to do that to you? The police would come over and arrest both the next door neighbor and Joey Bloggs, convict them both, and send them both to prison. Why? Because they're doing something that's morally wrong and therefore illegal. They've made laws against that immoral act because it's immoral. So let's say your next door neighbor says, fine, I won't hire Joey Bloggs to stand in your way and threaten you with a baseball bat and tie you to the front porch or steal your money. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get together with all of your other neighbors, except the one that whose lawn you cut, and we're going to vote on who should be the person elected to hold a baseball bat to your head and tie you to your front porch or steal your money and prevent you from cutting the lawn across it. So we're going to elect someone. Oh, look, it's Joey Bloggs. Joey Bloggs is going to now be elected by a majority of your neighbors to prevent you from working for less than $5. Does that change the morality of it? No, it doesn't. And so if they held their own little private election and your whole neighborhood said, yes, let's hire Joey Bloggs to go over there and threaten you, prevent you from cutting your neighbor's lawn for $5 and tie you to your front step and take money from your back pocket as a fine, Well, the police would round up the whole neighborhood, charge them all with a conspiracy, a criminal conspiracy, and they'd convict them all. And there'd be fines and imprisonment for them all. Why? Because it's immoral, and therefore the law was imposed to prevent them from doing that immoral act. So let's say your next door neighbor says, fine, fine, fine. Let's say then it's not just a regular private election. What we'll do is we'll all get together and we'll put a crown on the head of Joey Blogs. And we'll call him King Joey Blogs or Queen Joey Blogs. And Joey Blogs will come over with a baseball bat and hold it to you and prevent you from going over there and steal some money from your back pocket and tie you to your front step if you try. Well, so now Joey Blogs is elected by the people, he's paid by the people, or at least by the majority of your neighbors. He was wearing a golden crown, so that must change something, right? Well, no, it doesn't change anything. The police would laugh at his face, say, okay, call yourself Queen Joey Blogs if you want, but you're still coercing this gentleman. Here's the handcuffs, we're charging you, putting you in jail, and we're going to charge all the people who are involved in this criminal conspiracy as well. That's exactly what would happen. So, we're getting pretty darn close to calling this a government, aren't we? I mean, the government is the crown. Literally. In law, we call that the crown. And we elect the people who form our government, don't we? And they pass these rules that, pursuant to which they send out some guy to hold a stick to your face, to prevent you from going across the street and charging $5 for your labor, stealing $5 out of your pocket if you do so as a fine. Does the morality change? Is it somehow moral for the government to do that, which your next door neighbor would be sent to prison for doing? How on earth does the morality of that change? It doesn't. There ought to be a law preventing the government from doing that to you. And yet, here's the government coming out and saying that for you, they're going to impose this penalty on you and on the person whose lawn you cut and would like to cut for $5. But it's for your own good. It's utterly moral, and we'd be sent to prison if we weren't called the government for doing it on criminal conspiracy charges. However, because we're the government, all the morality is turned upside down, and suddenly evil is good, good is evil, illegal becomes legal, and you are a bad, bad, bad person for daring to choose to cut your neighbor's lawn for $5 an hour. It's not your right to tell me what I can do with my labor or how much I have to charge for my labor. And minimum wage laws do exactly that. They tell me how much I can charge for my labor. They don't just tell you as an employer how much you're allowed to pay. They tell you as an employee how much you have to charge. And that is the real nature of the minimum wage. Now, who wants wages to be higher? Well, your neighbor does. Your neighbor doesn't like you charging $5 to cut lawns because he wants to cut that same lawn for $10. And when you charge $5, he can't get $10 for his labor anymore. So he goes to the government and he says, will you pass a law that makes it illegal for my neighbor to charge only $5 to cut lawns for $5 an hour? Because then I'll be able to charge $10 an hour if you raise that minimum wage to $10. That is the true nature of the minimum wage. It's not really about forcing employers to give quote-unquote fair wages. It's about preventing employees from competing with you, or to prevent you from competing with your neighbor. Now here's the other thing. Reportedly, this decision to raise the minimum wage to $10.25 was made only after the Minister of Finance commissioned a study by an economist whose expertise is in the effect of raising the minimum wage. This economist, this expert, has prepared numerous reports in academic journals. He's prepared reports for the federal government, and he has told the finance minister that raising the minimum wage to $10.25 from $8, all in one fell swoop, would cause a loss of employment of between 90,000 and 180,000 jobs. That's his estimate. Now, he did not say that phasing a 75-cent per year increase to the minimum wage in over 3 years would not cause job losses. He didn't say that. It will cause job losses, and if you read anything else he's written, he says exactly that raising the minimum wage costs people their jobs. Incidentally, it's utterly false that raising the minimum wage is a way to fight poverty, because that same economist, as well as just about every economist who's studied the issue, will tell you that the vast majority of people who work for a minimum wage are young people living at home with their parents, whom in many cases are not poor at all, so they're not necessarily from poor families or from lower income families. And the second most common group of people that are working for the minimum wage are seniors who have left their well-paying careers to retire. You know who I'm talking about, the folks who greet you at Walmart, or who serve you at Tim Hortons, or serve you at McDonald's. People who need perhaps a little extra money to make ends meet, and on top of whatever pension or investments they might have. People who are actually struggling on a government pension. These are the people who will lose their jobs. People who are working their way through university will lose their jobs. Not all of them, but many of them. Why? Well, because then you only have so much money you can charge for a Starbucks coffee. And you only have, because people won't buy them when they get to $7, your market share of coffee sales is going to go way down, trust me. And so you can't just keep increasing the cost of products. So if the cost of your labor is going up, you either close down the business, or you force those who are working to do more in the time that they're working there for a higher wage, and you fire people. You reduce your workforce and make your remaining workforce work harder, if that's even possible. And you know what happens for the customer too. That means rude service, no service, minimizing of service. Generally, because people are being forced to deal with more work. Work that used to be done by 10 people is now being done by 7 people or 8 people. You can only do so much. I'm an employment lawyer. I see people all day long who have been pushed to human limits on what they can do in the time allotted. A lot of them, just to keep their jobs, stay after work, don't clean the hours, they're working for free. If you don't think that's going to happen when they increase the minimum wage, you're living on planet Mars. That's exactly what's going to happen. Because people will not be able to do much more work. And when their co-workers are fired because the employer can no longer hire as many people because the minimum wage has gone up, that person's going to be spending time after work not getting paid for it. So thank you, Dalton McGuinty. You've just put a lot of people on the street into the unemployment lines, and you've made those people who still have jobs work harder, and in fact, work after hours without pay. Congratulations. And by the way, they weren't even the people suffering in the poverty bracket. Those folks, in many cases, aren't working at minimum wage jobs. They're not working. They've got a host of other problems that might prevent them from working. Mental illness, family care duties, etc. Address those things if you need to. Give them a tax cut, for God's sakes. Give us all a tax cut, not just the poor. And there are a host of things that can be done. But cranking up the minimum wage will not fight poverty. It will only ensure that you've decreased the number of jobs available and increased everybody's workload and made people work like slaves for free. Now you can call that moral if you want, your twisted little moral code. But where I come from, that's the height of immorality. It might sound nice. We should raise the minimum wage and give people a decent living wage. It doesn't work that way. That's not what happens. You put people out of work. You deprive people of labor when they would be perfectly willing to supply it at the price that they could actually sell it for, that people would be willing to buy it for. It's not just the guy making minimum wage who's going to lose his job. What if he makes ball bearings for minimum wage? And what if you're making $20 an hour in an assembly plant of some sort that uses those ball bearings? Now the cost of those ball bearings is going to go up. Why? Because the cost of labor went up. And so when your boss at the assembly plant gets the bill for the ball bearings, he's going to say, jeepers creepers, the cost of our hardware, the cost of the things that we assemble has gone up. But I can't charge more for the thing that we make. I mean, there's hardly a market as it is, and we're charging enough for these vehicles or for these widgets. What am I going to do? I have to cut my labor costs. Guess what? Your wage at $20 an hour is probably going to see some downward pressure. Either some of your colleagues are going to get let go to control labor costs, or everybody's going to suffer a cut, either to their wages, or to their benefits, or to their pension. You want to bet it will affect you, even if you're not in the minimum wage zone. It's immoral. And it's exactly opposite to what the proper role of government is. The proper role of government in employee-employer relations is to make sure that there's an absence of coercion, that there's an absence of dishonesty between the employee and the employer. For example, employers, and I see this all of the time, employees, especially in the sales field, will work months or years to establish a big contract, a sales contract, for the employer. And the employer will fire that employee just before he knows the sale is going to close. And then he'll say, you don't get a commission because it didn't close before you were fired. Or you don't get a commission because the pay date for the commission fell after the date on which you were terminated. This happens routinely. It's a fraud. There are employers out there who are using sales employees to make massive contracts that will raise huge profits for the employer, and then cheating the employee who put that contract together out of their commissions. Now, if you want to repair the law, if you want to do some good, put some safeguards in place that make sure that everybody knows exactly what the rules of engagement are, and then make sure that people get paid for what they do on the terms they agree to do it. None of these sleazy rip-offs that are going on routinely, especially in the sales field. You want to know another one? Here's another one. You've been working as a salesperson for 10 years at some company, and you've got a lot of loyalty, personal loyalty among your customers, the customers you have contact with at your employer. And let's just say you have no non-competition agreement. You're allowed to resign and work for someone else, and your employer just has to take into account the fact that you're a popular guy and you might actually end up taking some business with you wherever you go. And there's a whole range of businesses out there who will offer such salespeople sweet deals, signing bonuses, what look to be higher wages or higher base salaries or higher commissions. And what do? They make them sign a contract that says, oh, and by the way, if we let you go, you're not allowed to not allowed to serve any of our customers for 2 years or 1 year after we dismiss you. Now, as they're handing you this contract, they say, oh, we expect a long future of mutual success. The company and you and the company, we're all going to prosper from this. Welcome aboard. And 6 months later, they hand you your papers. And what do they tell you on the way out the door? Oh, remember all those people you brought over from the other company? If you call them, if you talk to them, if you sell anything to them, and we end up losing money, millions or billions of dollars, We're suing you. We're taking your house, your car. You won't be able to rub 2 cents together. So don't you bother trying to work for some competitor. You've agreed not to. What? I agreed to what? That's right. Go see your lawyer. Well, guess what? They come to me. This stuff is epidemic. Do you think that the McGuinty government's, concerned about those employees? Not at all. You don't hear a peep. Instead, you hear, well, we're going to, impose a minimum wage so people have a decent wage, which is malarkey, which doesn't help those suffering from poverty, which doesn't help anybody to keep a job and only puts people out of work. I would encourage you to write to Dalton McGuinty and to John Tory, the yes man of politics, and to the NDP, in particular Sherry DeNovo, and let them know that you are outraged morally outraged that the McGuinty government, knowing that jobs will be lost, will raise the minimum wage. Let them know. Your job might depend on it. Get writing, okay? Get writing, get blogging, get video logging. Post a response to this video. If you disagree with me, tell me why. Be angry, be indignant. Tell me I'm a horrible, horrible man. Tell me that I must be paid by the oil companies or something like that. Geez, I wish. Or maybe, just maybe, if you've listened to what I have to say, and if after thinking about it a while, you agree with me, maybe post something that supports the idea that maybe we're a little bit misguided in thinking that we're doing good when we raise the minimum wage. Maybe this needs a rethink.